All right, you're locked into MMA Canada and very excited to be talking to an individual competing at BFL 81 World War II, which is going to be going down on September the 6th. And the BFL Featherweight Championship is going to be contested for in this one as Drake Randall steps in there with Radley Da Silva. And great getting to have Radley on MMA Canada for the first time. How are you doing, man? You having a solid day so far?
Yeah, I'm having a great day. Just got my first training session in. Just stopping by at home to do this, and then I'll be out the door again.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. A lot of cool stuff heading into the fight, though. I mean, just the scale of BFL, just how much it's been elevating as you've been elevating in your career has been cool to see. And I saw this the other day too on one of the BFL socials. I think this is pretty incredible. The fact that you've not lost a round in the last 10 years. I mean, that's pretty incredible to hear, right? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I've been hearing that one for the last little bit. It's one of those stats. It sounds cool, but there's nothing that I'm like, going in there thinking that I have to hold on to that. It's cool to hear, but there's definitely other stats that I feel like I'm just as proud of as well. Uh, that I would like to keep, which is not getting hit, the defensive stats and stuff like that. But it's cool not losing around. I don't tend to lose any rounds, but if you lose around here and there, it doesn't change anything.
Yeah, I feel like you wouldn't lose all of your composure if you end up losing a round if that were to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not in there looking to, I am looking to win every round, but it's not the end of the world if you lose a round in a 5 round fight.
And just what are your thoughts on the, I guess, machinations of the matchup? Because I mean, Drake Randall coming in with that 6-0 record and then all of his wins happening in the opening round of the fight. Like, what was your, I guess, level of awareness as to, I guess, his resume and just some of his, I guess, better stylistic attributes and whatnot?
Yeah, for me personally, at this stage of my martial arts career, I mean, I've been doing it since I was 5 years old. So I'm just looking for the best challenges I can get. And a lot of the times for my career, it was just hard for me to even get a fight. So now that I've had the belt and defended it, I feel like now I can make the calls and try to actually get these tougher challenges every time. And Drake's name came across. I saw the 6-0 record that enticed me right away. I saw that it was all first round finishes. That made me more excited. And the thing that I'm most excited about is the stylistic matchup. The fact that he's a wrestler and he wrestled in college and most of his life. And that's a specific style that I've literally been preparing for since I was a young man. And basically getting ready for that specific style. And I feel like this is the best time in my career to take that challenge on and to show that I can conquer that challenge and that I'm ready to move on to the UFC and the highest levels.
And that's interesting because I feel like people who followed your career have really noticed the strides in your wrestling game in recent performances. Like obviously you're known for, your capoeira base and your family in a generational sense very known for that as well. So I mean, I guess in saying all of that, I feel like it's very exciting to I guess hear this from you that this is going to be I guess the most comprehensive wrestling skill set that you have to showcase in this fight. And like you'd said, seems like a good opponent to play off of in that sense to kind of showcase where you're at in that regard.
Yeah, exactly. On top of all that, like when I was young, I stopped doing capoeira for at least 2 years. I stopped all the martial arts I was doing and focused only on wrestling when I was early into high school. So I feel like that really gave me the edge that I needed. Already doing martial arts my whole life, and I've never stopped grappling and wrestling since then. I started jiu-jitsu when I was like 8, 9 years old, and did wrestling and throughout high school, and I never stopped grappling. So I've already got like 20 years wrestling and grappling almost. So for me, it's just one of those things where it's almost like one of those boxes to check because some people like to avoid the wrestling matchups. Oh, I don't want to go against the wrestler. For me, it's something that I've been literally training and working towards my whole life, and couldn't happen at a more perfect time. On top of me being active in the last year, being able to get fights in, being able to do 5 rounds. I'm one of my main training partners for the last 2.5, 3 years has been like a 7-time Iranian national wrestling champion, and it's really, it gives me all the confidence in the world that I already had all that confidence, but on top of that, uh, having one of the best training partners I could possibly get for a style like that is, just adding to the confidence. And I feel like it's going to be a moment of everything coming together, everything that, the training partner, the years that I put in, and the sacrifices I made to make strides in that area of the game. And I feel like I'm really going to showcase the difference between MMA wrestling and college wrestling.
And you'd kind of mentioned before that it had been hard getting fights for certain periods in your career. And I had noticed that you had a couple, I guess, like multi-year layoffs. Like, obviously, you have that ethos of the martial artist where you're still diligently building skills all through that time. But is there a certain level of satisfaction to having, like, I guess, in a relative sense, even a certain greater strength of schedule, just with this being your third fight of the calendar year?
Oh, 100%. You're only, anything that you haven't done before is new, and you get nerves and stuff when you're trying something completely new, right? So even just getting my feet wet and actually being active is just a whole different level of comfort now that I'm feeling when I go inside the cage, and everything, man. Even going into your first 5-round fight and all that kind of stuff, you never know until you know. So that's another thing I feel like I have immense amount of edge over my opponent, is knowing that I can go 5 rounds, wrestle a whole 5 rounds. I can strike with world-class strikers. I can grapple with world-class jiu-jitsu guys and wrestlers. So I feel like it's going to be hard to get in there for the first time and really test your cardio and see if you can actually do 5 rounds with a guy like me who's already been there, been tested, been doing it forever, and is definitely going to be dangerous all over. It's not just the grappling. I can definitely submit them, but at the same time, I've been putting people away on the feet my whole life, on the mat. So I feel like this is a matchup specifically where I'll have I'll have the ability to really showcase my stand up on as well.
Yeah, and you talk about, I guess, the confidence that's imparted from certain experiences, like the whole dynamic you outlined of, like, you don't necessarily know until you know. And you mentioned the specific context of being in championship fights, just now readying to make that second championship defense here. I mean, I would think there'd be a certain compounding sense of, I guess, just that kind of familiarity and that ever growing confidence dynamic that we were touching on there.
Yeah, this will be in total my fourth championship fight, but I've been in camp for other ones too. So I've been in camps for 5-round fights now, 5 different times, and I've really brought it down to a science, with the recovery and the training, and now, like, I start my weight cut around 184 pounds, and I really know how to hone it down to the point where the weight cut is a breeze. It's like the easiest thing ever. Before I'd be stressing, and now it's like, man, I don't even need to worry about weight. And I feel like I've really found my stride when it comes to organizing a fight camp.
You were talking about the desire to want to go to the UFC at a certain point. Like, it seems like you also have gotten some looks in that kind of regard, like in the sense of when I was doing some backgrounding on you, it looked like you'd gotten in a fair bit of work with Tristan Connelly ahead of his Michel Pereira fight. And obviously, like, attributes within your game can kind of give you certain looks that might also be associated with Pereira there. So it seems like you've been kind of getting in this caliber of work for a while now.
Yeah, Vancouver actually produces quite a bit of UFC talent. Years I trained with Tristan, years I trained with Cole Smith. I've trained with Arjan Bhullar, even though he's a heavyweight. I've trained with him a few times. Quite Jamie Horth, even the women's division. Like, I've trained with anyone who's gone to the UFC from the city. I've trained with at some point. So, like I said, I've been in the martial arts community here since I was 5 years old. I know everybody. I've trained with everybody, and everybody's always known how good I am. It's been so hard to be able to like string fights together, and now it's happening. And it was a lot of me just kind of, I've said this in other interviews, instead of like forcing the issue of like, no, I have to fight, I have to make it to the UFC. At a certain point, I just kind of let go of that mentality and just focused on, other things in life. And I never stopped training because that's my lifestyle. But once I kind of, let go and let things kind of fall into place, that's when I feel things really started taking off for me. And last year I had set my goal for I wanted to be 6-1 by the end of this year. And the way it looks right now, I'm basically one fight away from doing it. And the goal after that was to make my case for a Dana White Contender series, or maybe a short notice in one of the Canada cards. So if things go well here and I can put a good performance forward, I don't see why I shouldn't get that call up, just based on my strength of schedule and the level of opponents. I've never fought anybody coming off a loss. My last three opponents have all been on 5-6 fight win streaks, all coming off several finishes. So I feel like I've taken the proper route. And I think with a good performance here, if I can get a finish, my finish rate will be 50%. And yeah, I think I'll have shown what it takes to make my case to fight at the higher level.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that you kind of adopted that mentality with it. I imagine a certain, I guess, earlier part in that process might have been a bit frustrating in a certain sense, because I think I'd seen some interviews where you were kind of like, yeah, sometimes when you have that lower record, like it's a bit of a harder kind of fight, just because like I think the MMA experience you have belies a lot of the broader experience we were talking about. Like you've been training since you were a young kid, and like I said, come from a family of martial artists and stuff like that. So I imagine there was probably like a frustrating period early on with that, but it sounds like you were just like, oh, I gotta focus on what's within my immediate control and go from there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at the same time, you can manifest things and you can really like, focus your energy on it, but at the same time, you can't force it. You can't force flow, right? It kind of just happens. So once I, started living more in the moment, stopped focusing so much about the future, and everything kind of has been falling into place ever since. And, it feels like nowadays, before it would be like everything would get in the way for me to get a fight. It feels like now everything in my life moves out of the way whenever I have a fight coming up, no matter the circumstance. I'll be like, oh man, how am I supposed to get this fight? And then everything will just figure itself out just for me to show up on the day. So I know deep down that if I make it to the fight on that day, that's exactly where I'm meant to be. And everything else is just, flow.
Yeah, no, great mentality to have, man. And yeah, I mean, fair enough. You can't necessarily force the issue in some of those kind of regards and stuff like that. And clearly it's been paying off through the recent run you've had. But I've referenced the family lineage a couple times here. Like, I think one of the things that I also really love, I guess, is like a point of connectivity to BFL as well. Like the fact that your dad, Andre Da Silva, shared a spot at BFL 25 several years ago with you also on the card. And he's also collected gold in the amateur MMA ranks with BFL also. So just, yeah, that's so cool. Like that must have been an amazing experience. And I mean, just, yeah, so cool to see all of that kind of connectivity to BFL and both of you having your, I guess, continuations of your respective martial arts journeys.
Yeah, and I feel like in a sense that's kind of what made it hard for me to get fights. Is like everybody knows that I have like family that fights, and even one of my cousins actually, he probably has like literally one of the most viral knockouts outside of UFC and like MMA history. So it's hard to when everyone knows your family for being these high flying, knockout artists, and your dad also making his name locally. It's like it was hard to get fights. So it also, it's sometimes big shoes to fill. People see your cousin getting crazy knockouts like that go viral around the world, and then, they see you coming up and they're like, is he gonna do it too? So it's a lot of just, being comfortable in my own skin in the fight game and making my own name, and, setting my own path, because I do feel like I'm a new generation, new breed of capoeira fighter. I did capoeira my whole life, but I also took the time to really stop and focus on each discipline on its own, and then brought it all back together when I started my MMA career when I was 16. And yeah, I feel like they just seeing them and seeing how far they were able to get representing our martial art capoeira, it definitely gave me all the motivation in the world to want to get good at wrestling, get good at everything, and so that I can fight the guys at the highest level. Because I did, like, when I was young, I did notice that the hardest matchups were guys that were just going to grapple or just going to wrestle. So early on, I already had it in my mind that I was going to do wrestling. I was going to do all these things to make sure that nobody has a chance. And I feel like I've done that. And now wrestling is definitely one of my strong suits and my cardio and all that. So the high flying stuff is definitely an attribute. And things that you can't really teach are the athleticism, explosiveness, balance, flexibility, all those things that I take from capoeira. But the other stuff, I was lucky to be able to also add to my game.
Yeah, and I mean, talking about just motivation and family lineage, like just with you being a dad yourself now and have been for a little bit, I mean, that must add a little something extra there too. I mean, probably another permutation at some point of the capoeira tradition continuing onward as well. But I mean, yeah, I imagine that adds just so much to your already strong drive as a competitor there.
Yeah, it did. It was actually funny. My daughter was born like right before I started my run with BFL. So I had been on a 3-year hiatus from fighting. I was looking for fights the whole time. The pandemic hit, all of that. It ended, and then I was in a fight. I was in fight camp basically for like 8 months, and I had gone like through opponents. Like I couldn't get a fight, and I was literally, and I had my daughter coming up, and I was almost ready to call it quits because I was like, man, here goes a whole nother year where I've been in fight camp trying to get all these fights, and I have a daughter coming up and it's just not happening. And then I literally said, yeah, you know what? I'm kind of just gonna let, if I can get a fight, I'll get a fight, but I think I'm just gonna relax a little bit and focus on the upcoming birth of my daughter. And then literally a month before she was born, I got a call from Jay, and he's asked me if I wanted to take a fight. And I said, yeah, I will, of course. But I'm not like, if it doesn't happen, I'm not gonna, I'll be all depressed about it, but I'll take it. And sure enough, my daughter was born right like maybe like 3 weeks before that fight. And the fight went through, and then I haven't looked back ever since, man. It's like she's been my good luck charm ever since she's been born. I've been able to get in there each time. And yeah, I'm just so grateful now that I can actually put a streak together and stay active. And she definitely gives me all that motivation for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that you've been able to continue this competitive journey. I guess what at the time were you thinking of transitioning into doing? Because it seems like you'd be interested in, still being involved in martial arts and even like a, professor kind of capacity, even like, was that kind of what you were thinking the path would have been at the time, just redirecting from, I guess, competitive professional mixed martial arts to like maybe, I guess, just coaching and teaching people in like a martial arts gym, I guess?
Yeah, I actually had started like teaching privates and stuff like that. I took a huge break from doing any kind of teaching because when I was young, like, in my family, our job was martial arts. So at a young age, I was already being, teaching classes, like teaching kids classes, adult beginner classes, like when I was an early teen. So I kind of got like sick of it pretty early and I wanted to just focus on my own professional career. And yeah, that year before I started again teaching privates and all that. And I also work in the film industry. I do like stunts and work on video games. So I was gonna dictate more time towards that because I feel like I'm like half in, half out because I want to stay working on my professional career, but at the same time, I love working in film and using my body to create scenes and all that stuff. So I would have probably just gone and focused full in on that and also teaching if I wasn't going to be able to get a fight. But luckily, I was able to do it, and now I'm 3 fights, about to be 4 fights in, and hopefully I'll get to accomplish my goal of being 6-1 that I set last year exactly. And then after that, we're looking for the Contender series.
Yeah, and I guess ultimately you can, pursue those things even after the fact. Like there's a certain like more, I guess, defined window in one's professional MMA career. Like I mean, you were touting earlier some of the, I guess, stats related to your defensive savviness and not getting hit. But I mean, all the same, still like a relatively kind of defined window. Like you can always kind of end up teaching after and, being involved in the film industry after the fact, I guess, right?
Yeah, that was exactly my point. Like I said, in those hiatuses, like is when I kind of took the time to establish myself in those industries, and I was able to do it. Join the film union and all that stuff, the stunts, and then worked on some cool projects as well. So I was able to do that and establish myself there, and now I feel like I have more of that freedom to not feel like, oh, what am I going to do if MMA doesn't work out? Like I have other avenues as well, so that also helps.
Yeah, and one of the projects that I was noticing you were involved with and doing my research leading into this, like you were pretty heavily involved in the EA Sports video game with like the motion capture suit and imitating different fighters. So can you kind of talk about that? That sounds like a dream for a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't know how much I can talk about it because they're EA super like they try to
Yeah.
NDAs and all that, but yeah, definitely I did. I was part of the UFC 4 game. I mean, it's out now. You can play it if you go to career mode and you pick voice one, you'll hear my freaking nasally voice there. If you want to like create a character and stuff, I'm one of the voice options, and I also did all the motion capture for the create a character, and yeah, spend lots of time on that game. Um, you know, imitating the fighters and doing all that stuff. It's super fun. It's kind of like a dream job for a fighter like myself to just go in there and kind of do what you would normally do anyways, train, throw punches, shadow box, stuff like that. And yeah, man, it's one of those projects that's like it's every kid's dream to like be able to play yourself in a video game, and like every time like I can make my character and hear my voice and it's my movement. So super blessed on that, and I'm so happy that they brought me into that and continue to work on it, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned Contender series a couple times. I feel like if you have certain, I guess, goals mapped out for next year, like, I mean, you were talking about being poised to actualize your goals into reality this year, just as far as like what you wanted your record to be by the end of 2024. I mean, who knows? Things fall into place within, I guess, the goals you have for subsequent years. Maybe you're going to be a playable character yourself in one of the future video games, I guess, right?
Oh, that's definitely the goal. I want to be in there and doing my own movements and stuff, so it'll be perfect to the T. You can't say it was wrong at all because I was the one doing it. And yeah, I do see that happening. Like I was saying, I don't want to just go into UFC just to represent my martial art and just to say I did it. I feel like because of how long I've been doing it, the level of competition I constantly keep putting myself against, I think that when I get into the UFC, I'm not just gonna be another name there. I really feel like I can be a top ranked fighter. And I honestly feel like I have a perfect style to even match up against the current champ, Ilya Topuria. Just seeing what kind of troubles have what kind of styles have given him troubles, like a guy like Yusuf Zalal, the other fella in 155 that almost knocked him out with a kick. It seems like those longer, lengthier fighters with good movement and good kicks always give him trouble, and I have great wrestling on top of that, and I'm just as explosive and strong. So I feel like stylistically, I would even pose a really good threat to their champion, and that's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking to just get into the UFC to say I got there. I really think I can go and be a top ranked fighter.
And I guess, do you see him still being positioned in that spot by the time you, I guess, ideally get into the UFC fold? Like, if things fall into place for you, like, do you kind of still see him occupying that spot? I guess I'm kind of like also packaging it in the context of him readying to defend his belt against former champion of the promotion in that division, Max
Even
Holloway.
if
Like,
he
yeah.
even if he's not, it would still be a great win to have, no matter where he is. He's a former champion, so I'm just looking at the top fighters. That's what I'm comparing myself to the top fighters in the division right now, and he's the number one. So instantly I'm looking at him, right? But even if he's not, I would still want to fight him just to say I took out a former champion, anyways, and that would be a huge, feather in my cap if I would be able to do that. But I know that, it could take years, but the way I see it, the way I would want to do my UFC career is I don't take much damage in my fights. I have the martial arts base where it's to hit and not get hit. You got to keep your faculties intact at the end of the day. And I don't take much damage in my fights, and it's not by luck, right? It's a purposeful thing. So I want to get in the UFC and try to turn around as fast as I can. I know they're needing to fill shows all the time, and they're doing these short notice fights all the time. So my goal is to get there and be able to be as active as possible, because you see the people that fight 5 times a year, even if they lose one or two, they get bumped up to that status because of their activity. Like guys like Holland, one of the women here from the UFC, her name's Lupi Godinez. She was super active, and even if she didn't win all her fights, it was still bumped her to that status of being someone who's willing to fight, who's willing to, you know, be a company person, and that's the kind of person I want to be when I get in there, and hopefully that'll streamline my way to the title if I can string together a good amount of wins.
Yeah, no, I love the vision, man, and it's been great to follow along with your journey in the sport already so far. But just kind of being mindful of your time and schedule and everything, Radley. And I guess just in the interest of if you had a final parting thought to add as we're wrapping up, I wanted to kind of give you the floor and everything. I do appreciate you making some time to chat.
Yeah, might as well thank some of my sponsors, Fairfax Partners. These guys have been with me for the last few fights. Ashek Capoeira, Pinnacle MMA, Strike Recovery. Um, there's one more, but yeah, just thanking my sponsors, man, because this game does get, financially draining after a while, especially at the lower levels when, you're not making the big UFC money and all that. So at this level, it's just for the love of it. And to be able to get support from people, it means the world that they see the potential in me, and they're able to help me get there. And yeah, just wanted to thank my sponsors.
Yeah, no, for sure. Glad that you have that kind of support because it is hard to, carve out that path in the absence of there being sponsors, as you eloquently put there. But yeah, it's been great getting to finally chat with you. I've been watching you fight for a little while now, Radley, and I'll certainly be checking out BFL 81 to see the latest title fight there. And for people who aren't in the immediate area, they can also check that out on September 6th via UFC Fight Pass. So I'll be peeping that Drake Randall fight. And thanks so much for appearing on the MMA Canada platform today. And you also have a great rest of your day, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Dylan. I appreciate you taking the time to give me a platform and give these fighters a platform. It means a lot.